In the previous section, we previously looked at some features of the slider, and we also looked at the contents of the box when you buy the S1A1 remote controlled wireless slider. What we're going to have a look at now is the installation process. The installation process requires us to attach the motor section to the slider and also attach the battery to the motor section in order to get the slider running. So now let's have a look at the installation process. Firstly, we must take out our motor section. This is an 8 to 32 watt motor, and it also has aluminium plate here. The motor is well made, lightweight and very sturdy. Firstly, let's have a look at the antenna. The antenna goes in here in order to require the frequency for the motor to work. Secondly, we have 4 frequency buttons here on the side. They are also for the remote controller to communicate with the motor. Next, we can have a look at the opposite side. We have 2 DC adapter connections here. The reason there are 2 is because if your battery is running low, you can simply attach a second battery to here to allow you to continue your time lapse without having a battery run out. We also have an on switch here which turns on the motor, and then importantly also we have a V section here for putting the battery onto the back. Overall, this motor is very well made. The product is nice. The bottom and the screws are aluminium, so it is very sturdy and it is a very good motor overall. Also, we have a USB connection here where the firmware is updated via this connection here. Okay, so we previously talked about the motor section and the many different features of the motor section. Now we are going to look at attaching the motor section to the slider while using the timing belt. The timing belt is in your box here. So here we have the timing belt. We take the white part here and we align it with the white part here. So simply put it in here, around the belt. Make sure the belt is nice and tight. So we attach the motor section to the slider like this. Okay, so now it is attached. And the 2 white points are beside each other. So now we take our 2 screws in the box here. These are 2 aluminium screws. One goes in this side here to make sure it's nice and tight, and then 2 in this side here. Make sure it's nice and tight. We also make sure that our belt here is nice and tight too. And if your belt is not tight, you can check underneath here to make sure it is attached to the other timing belt. So now we have 1 more screw, another aluminium screw, and this screw goes in the top here. So we simply take this screw, put it in the top, put it on nice and tight, and now the motor is attached. Okay, now that we have attached the motor section to the slider here, and it's nice and strong and it's on proper, we can now attach the aerial here, and we can also attach the battery here to the V section at the back. So firstly, let's attach the aerial. So simply take the aerial from the box and attach it on here like so. So now you have your aerial on, good and tight. Now, secondly, we're going to attach the battery to the V section here. So we take our battery, which is our Li-on battery, and we have a look at the back, which is a V section here to match here, and then we simply attach the battery like so, and the battery is on. To release the battery, we simply press this button here, in, pull up, and the battery is free. Okay, now we have our battery attached to our motor section, and our motor section is attached to the slider. We can attach a power cable from the battery to the motor section. Simply take your power cable here from the box. This end, you take off the plastic cover here, like so. Then you simply attach the battery the other way, so like this, and then this cable DC is around the back here into your DC adapter. Okay, now we've attached the battery here to the motor section, and the motor section is attached to the slider. We can turn on the motor section by simply pressing the red button here. You will see a green light flashing, which means that the motor section is charged and it's now on. I might add that you can get 48 hours on one charge from this motor and 16 hours from one charge from this battery. So what we're going to do now is simply show you how to update the firmware for the motor section. Simply take the firmware data cable from the box, use the USB connection here, plug it into the motor section, like so, and then take this end, the USB end, and put it into a PC or any computer. You can then update the firmware online following the instructions. Okay, so our battery is on, our motor section is attached. We can now have a look at the plate here. Again, this is an aluminium plate. It's very well made, it's very sturdy, and this is a 3/8 nut attachment for most broadcast cameras. If you want to put a DSLR camera on this plate, you need a pan head like the one shown here. So you can see the attachment will fit the nut down here. But you need one of these if you want to attach a DSLR camera like a Canon 5D or a Nikon to the plate head here. So now let's look, how do we attach a tripod to this slider? Well, we can attach up to 3 tripods to this slider simply by turning the slider upside down as shown. So if we turn it upside down, we have one tripod attachment here. We have a second tripod attachment here. And we also have a third tripod attachment here. So altogether we can attach 3 tripods to secure our slider. Okay, so as you can see, I have a camera attached to the slider. What I need to do now is attach the wireless shutter to the camera in order to communicate between the shutter and the remote controller. So I take my iFootage wireless shutter here, and this is powered by 2 AAA batteries in the back here, and it also has 4 frequency buttons, which you will see too. The reason for those frequency buttons is so the shutter can communicate with the remote controller, but it can also stop interference from any outside frequencies. So if I put the back on here, we take this part here and attach it to the camera's hot shoe, as so. Okay, so now we screw down this part here to make sure it's on, nice and solid. Okay, so now your shutter is attached to your camera. What you need to do now is attach the shutter cable from the shutter to the camera. And I take my shutter cable here. This is an N3 shutter cable for a Canon 5D Mark III. So I take my shutter cable, this end, I attach it to my camera, like so. And then I take this end here and I simply put it in the shutter. Okay, so now your shutter is attached to your camera. So you want to turn the shutter on, simply hold down this button 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and the green light will flash 3 times. What I like to do also is to make sure my shutter is communicating with my camera by simply turning my camera on, as so, and holding down the big button to see if it takes a picture. So now I know my shutter is communicating with my camera. Okay, as you can see, we have our shutter connected to the camera is connected to the plate, the battery is connected to the motor section, and the motor section is connected to the slider. So as far as our installation process goes, everything is done. So all there is to do now is to simply turn on the motor section, and I will go to manual on my remote control and just do some very simple tests to see that everything is working okay. So far it looks like everything is working okay. The slider is moving at a perfect speed, it's moving fast and it's also moving slow. The motor is working quite well, and also the belt is working well. So I suggest you do this before you do any other features on the slider. So now that our installation process is complete, in the next section I'm going to show you how to use the remote control. The remote control is used to do features such as time-lapse, macro slide, and also vertical and horizontal panning. I will show you how to use this remote in the next section.